wrong with my headphones, but all good now.
Okie dokie. Before we get started, just to let you know, it's on the consultation form and everything. We do record our consultations just so that way you can watch them back if you need any information from it afterwards.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, my fiance had asked to record it so he could see it, so that's perfect.
Okay. Were we waiting for him, or were we just going to go ahead and get started?
No, he has a meeting now, so he can't join. It'll just be me.
Okay. And then this is for Rio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So why don't you go ahead and get started and let me know kind of why you're reaching out for some more training and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we recently moved back into my parents' basement, and they're out in the suburbs of Chicago. And he's been here before, like when we'd come for, holidays or family dinners and whatnot. But since the move, I feel like he's just sort of gotten more aggressive when people are coming into the house that he doesn't know. It's mostly just like a lot of aggressive barking and growling. My uncle was in town and he as he was leaving kind of nipped the back of his shirt and a little bit of his skin on the way out.
Okay.
That was like a week ago, and then yesterday we just decided let's see how he is, and they were fine. Like after a little while, he was barking and growling, but then once he kind of felt more comfortable, he was laying with him, petting him, and it was okay.
Okay.
But I mean, my parents, I feel like they're pretty social and they have people in and out a lot. And I don't want to have him be like that with, everyone new. So it'd just be nice to get him feeling more like confident and comfortable around new people.
Okay. So mainly you're just having some issues with this behavioral stuff.
Yeah.
Have you noticed any of the behavior that he's exhibiting before you guys made the move, or is it just this started up only once you
Yeah.
got back?
When we would walk him, we used to live in the city, and when we would walk him, like if there was a homeless person or someone, I don't know, like that looked different to him, like he would get a little bit aggressive. Or he was on leash, so he never would bite, but
Yeah.
we would kind of act, I guess, protective and growl a bunch at him. I would say our apartment, because it was in the city, wasn't massive. So he had just a little area that we would keep him gated off in. And there was one other instance where this girl had come over and she had reached her hand out to pet him. This was not too long ago, like in July. And he did a similar don't come near me thing.
Yeah.
But he's such a sweet guy otherwise. He really is. He loves people. He really loves dogs. I guess there's been a few instances with dogs that he usually that are larger than him and maybe not fixed, I've noticed, where he doesn't feel, he maybe feels dominated by them or whatever. So he can kind of snap at them. But for the most part, he loves dogs and he loves people. It's just on occasion, some different people and dogs.
And then in the instances where he's uncomfortable with dogs, what does that look like, and has any of those situations ever escalated?
He's never gotten to a full-blown dog fight, but there's been times he sort of just growls at them. I can't even tell if he's trying to bite them, but he does show his teeth a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess he sort of does I don't want to say go for the neck, but there was this one dog. They were I think the Newfoundland, the really big ones that came into the park, and he just did not want him there. But yeah, the dog kind of just wanted to play with him. So after a while, he was fine. But yeah, it's the initial encounter.
Okie dokie. And then for this time where he nipped, you said it was your uncle?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did that situation kind of look like? Can you go into a little bit more detail about that?
Yeah. So he was outside. My uncle had come in and to the house, opened the door so that he could come in. He growled at him a little bit, but then they were kind of hanging out, as far as I know. I was working, so I didn't see it all. Yeah. But then on my uncle's way out, that's when it sort of triggered him again. And he was leaving, Rio was following him, kind of growling, and then had jumped up and grabbed shirt and I maybe a little bit of his skin. He said it didn't break his skin, but I don't know. It's kind of like tough guy, so he wouldn't really admit, I think. I don't know.
Okay.
It's just like scary. And if it's a kid or like someone, that he really hurts, like, yeah, don't want that.
Yeah. Um, okay. And then once Rio went for this like little nip on the back of his arm, did Rio like back off right away, or what did it look like afterwards? Did you guys have to address anything there, or?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of yelled at him like, "No, you don't do that." And like,
Yeah.
I think I like had grabbed like the back of his neck so that my uncle could just leave.
Uh huh.
And then he was back to normal. But it was just, no one else was in the house, so he was
Okay.
fine.
All right. Anything else that you think I should know or that you want to go into more detail about regarding his behavior? Maybe in other circumstances, or I know that he can be a little bit shy sometimes if you've ever had
Yeah.
situations that involving that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it takes him a little while to like warm up to dogs and some people. So maybe that's what it is him just like being really shy. And so it turns into like aggression or anxiety, just some of the stuff I've read that I think would make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess this is totally separate, but his like recall is not great either. Like I'd love to feel like confident. If I don't know that we'd ever like need to get him to be an off leash dog, but just even if we're at a park and he doesn't want to leave, like he'll stay, and even
Yeah.
if we're calling his name. So that would be really nice to also
Okay.
work on.
Um, Let me think if there's any more questions I have
Yeah.
about behavior stuff. Um,
You've seen him at daycare with you guys? Okay, yeah. What is he kind of? He just sort of hangs to himself. Like they've told us he doesn't really love to play with
yeah,
the
he's
dogs.
very like very reserved here.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
he's not necessarily the one to be running around or kind of doing all this extra play. Um,
Yeah.
with us, since he's already known us for a while, since he was a puppy, he does pretty good. I don't think we've ever had any issues with any of the defensiveness or anything. There's
Okay.
times we notice that putting him in and out of the kennel, sometimes he gets nervous and goes to the back of the kennel. Um, that is not really anything that we would really address. It's just like exposure over time of him getting comfortable with that. Like I know that sometimes when he's coming a little bit more, we notice that he's a little bit more forward in the kennel, so he's kind of willing to come out. But
Okay.
it's been like a long break, and then he comes back, he's a little more like nervous with things. Um,
So he does like the kennel with you guys.
yeah, he's fine with the kennel.
Or is fine with it.
Do you have any issues at home with him with the kennel?
So he loved it when he was a puppy, and then about at like 8, 9 months, he just stopped going in it. And since our apartment was so small and we were gating the areas he could be in, we just decided to kind of like forgo it.
Uh-huh.
But we have it set up now in the basement, next to our bed, and he like goes sleep in bed with us. But if he hears a loud noise upstairs or loud voices, he'll run in there
Oh,
himself. But we haven't like made a choice to like lock him in there just because again he kind of has like free reign in the basement and it's feels safe. But it's there again, so hopefully he starts seeing it more and more as a safe space.
yeah. Does he have any like? Do you notice any anxiety when you're like leaving, or can you leave him home alone and he's not gonna
Yeah,
hang up?
he like will run up the stairs with us to try to leave with us. So he definitely doesn't like to be alone, but I mean,
Uh,
once like we try to like have a pretty active like life with him. We'll like take him to daycare, we'll go for walks, he'll run around the backyard. So like when we're not here, he I think he's just sleeping. Like he's not, barking up a storm. Although he kind of did the first few days that we were here, and my parents just let him upstairs. But yeah, trying to like keep him down here when we're gone. And for the most part, we don't have a camera or anything, but I feel like it's been okay.
okay. Um, when you're putting him or when you're trying to get him to go in the kennel, I know you said you don't do it that much anymore. Um, was he ever giving you like issues going into the kennel, like you couldn't get him in, or like he wouldn't come out, anything like that, like problems with the
Yeah.
kennel? just decided to stop doing it?
At the 8, 9 month mark, that's when he just like would not go in. We would put food in there. We cooked him bacon. Like we did really high value treats, and he just would like, lunge forward to get the treat and then run away like as fast as
Okay.
he could. Like he would go under the bed. He just like got terrified of it out of nowhere.
Okay.
Um, but I don't think he's as scared of it anymore. He just like will sleep wherever he wants now.
Yeah. Um. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do know at daycare, like it hasn't been a problem as of recently, but I know that sometimes he would be nervous about going in and out of the kennel.
Yeah,
And
I'm not surprised.
yeah, we would do our best to keep like the leash pressure like towards the,
Okay.
so that way he can kind of learn that the only way you're going to get out of this is if you just go in the kennel, and then it'll be okay. And then once we started doing that, then he started kind of willingly just walking in the kennel because
Okay.
it's like the only option there then. So then we're kind of making it, we're one letting him make the decision to go in with the pressure, which I don't know if that's something you might have gone over with the puppy stuff. But
Yeah.
we're making him make the decision to go in, so we're not just like pushing him in or necessarily giving in right away when he gives pressure. um, we're letting him decide that we can wait here or you can go in like the kennel, and then after
Okay.
that, now he's kind of pretty smooth about going in and out. Like I said, sometimes he likes to stay in there, so he'll kind of go to the back of the kennel, but once we
Yeah.
up, he'll come out. um,
Okay.
we don't have any issues with that. um, but yeah, generally he is a little bit more on the nervous side, on the shy side.
Yeah.
We did notice that, like, even from when he was like younger, that's just something with his personality that we've noticed.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
we've never had any like problems with like any of the defensiveness, either with other dogs or any of the handlers here.
Okay, great.
So something like that, one of the things that kind of stood out to me right away of why you're kind of seeing this more intense behavior all of a sudden is probably because of the move.
Yeah.
Um, he's now in like a different location. He's got to settle in again, even though he's been there before. Now this is his kind of like new home spot.
Yeah.
Um, so it could be a few things. One, since he is a little more on the nervous side, he could be even more nervous just because now he's been kind of relocated a little bit. So he's trying to settle in. And then that extra nervousness and extra anxiety could be causing him to get defensive a lot easier. So whereas before, maybe it would take a little bit more for him to get amped up, now he's a little more sensitive to it just because he's in this new location. So he's trying to
Yeah.
settle in again. Um,
That makes sense.
Another thing could be that now that he's in this new location, he might be trying to kind of, since there isn't like a ton of discipline, like in the form of like what we would use as like an aversive, like e-collar, prong collar, doing the touch, bonker, stuff like that. He could also be thinking that we're in this new place. I kind of need to stand my ground. I need to like kind of like be a little more dominant of things, and
Yeah.
might be trying to kind of run the household a little bit as well. So, and that can still be coming from the nervousness, but he just might be thinking like, well, we're in this new spot. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna decide to be the leader now. And then that's
Yeah.
seeing the maybe more defensiveness at the door, like, who are you? Why are you coming into my home?
Yeah.
All
I
this.
wonder too, I forgot to mention this. My parents have a dog. She's like 11 or 12, really old and kind of on her way out, sadly. He loves her. He'll like go up to her and just kind of like nuzzle by her. Sometimes he'll,
Yeah.
yeah. But he like, I wonder too if that is like, even though she lives here, if he sees it as like now I'm in charge, or how you
Yeah.
were just saying.
Just because, for example, so, like even going all the way down to like the kennel or to like the general door stuff, since there hasn't really been a strong way of like giving him some structure of telling him like no to these certain things, and
Yeah.
like rather than just like saying it and then seeing if he follows through, since there's not been too strong of like discipline there, he could be kind of taking it upon himself to see that like, okay, they're not really like leading me so much.
Yeah.
Make sure
Okay.
that like taking care of things myself. It might be his mentality. And again, it would all also be coming from the nervousness, because now he's like nervous. He's like, well, like, who's gonna do this? Who's gonna, like, why are we here? Who's gonna look after
Yeah.
here? All that kind of stuff. Um, but especially since you said that it started up when the move happened, this is something that is like pretty common for dogs who are like relocating if they're trying to kind of find their footwork, especially
Hmm.
if they don't kind of have that strong like leadership from like the owner
True.
necessarily. Um, but the growling at different dogs and stuff like that on the walk also stems from the nervousness, and that is kind of separate from the move, just because we already know that he is a little nervous in general. So in those situations, we're seeing that come out, but kind of to a lesser extent, because it's not necessarily all this extra stuff of moving and everything. It's just outside on the walk. I'm a
Yeah.
little nervous. This dog's coming up to me. I don't know what they want, so I'm going to start growling because I want them to go away.
Yeah.
And then something that ends up being reinforced there. Well, I should ask you this first. When he starts to get defensive outside and starts to do the growling and all that stuff, what is your like plan of action there? Like, you just walk past the dog? Do you like go to the side? What do you?
Yeah. We try to go to the side, and we also have one of the leashes that has like the handle up top and then lower. So we'll just like hold the lower one, get him really close to us, and like try to wait for the dog to pass.
Okay.
That's like best case scenario. Like if it happens really fast or it's in the city or it's crowded, like we would just try to stay as close to him as possible and walk past the dog. But yeah, the thought
Yeah.
is to move out of the way.
Mhm. Yeah, that's not a bad idea or anything. A couple things that could be happening there, though, is since we at the moment you haven't really had a way of correcting this behavior. It's
Yeah.
more he's doing it and then you're waiting for it to kind of pass. In his head, he's kind of getting away with that moment a little bit.
Yeah.
So he's starting to growl. This dog's passing, and then the dog leaves, and then you go back.
Yeah.
So to him, he's like, I growled at the dog. The dog went away. So like
Yeah.
that was kind of like a success for him.
Yeah.
And then another thing is that um, when he is like in the faster moments where you're just kind of walking by a dog, it's the same mindset of I'm gonna growl at this dog, do whatever, and then the dog leaves right away, and there's no
Hmm.
correcting or anything. So a lot of this could also be like reinforcing it. So to him, he's like, I made the right decision. I should.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that all make sense or anything?
Yeah, total. I mean, it's not how we were thinking about it, but it totally makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so that's like a little bit of the nervousness from what you've told me, like kind of what something we see with other dogs who also have some nervousness that like would need to be worked on. And then for the kennel stuff, I would say that that is something that could help. Like once you get into the training and everything, like that is another thing that can be worked on. That can also help with some of this too. Just adding a little bit more structure and kind of like letting him know that like, hey, like if we want you to go in the kennel, you have to go in the kennel, and kind of creating
Yeah.
that, like leadership role for him.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
and then it's also like a little bit more disciplined. So if you notice that he's getting like anxious or worked up, then it's like, okay, we're going to kind of work on that by having you learn how to have your alone time by using the kennel to assist with that as well.
Okay.
So that's something too that can help with like the nervousness and anxiousness, especially if, as you guys are leaving. Um, if he can learn how to just go off and chill, do his own thing a little bit with like that structure of, you're going to go in the kennel, um, and kind of correcting any behaviors of him trying to kind of go against that. That can also help with a lot of stuff, just adding more structure in the home, letting him know that
Hmm.
he can
Hmm.
have free reign of the whole area. Because that's something that is very common when people adopt dogs and they bring them home. Sometimes they'll just give them free reign. They won't work on the kennel training, and then the dog starts to learn like, oh, I can do whatever I want here, and then we start
Yeah.
behavior stuff. So that could
Okay.
be another thing with the move, is that the new area, not a lot of structure. So he's thinking I could do whatever I want.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, Any questions with that?
Um, no, I guess like I mean, my next question, yeah, would be like, how do we make it so that he like loves it? I don't
Yeah.
know, you see like putting treats in there and his favorite toys and stuff, but like, I still think he'd rather like lay next to me than if I'm
Yeah.
working or whatever, than go in there.
So the way that I would think about it initially is that you would be using it to create that structure for him. So he's not necessarily going to like love it right off the bat because now we're telling him he has to go in there. So initially he's going to be like, well, I don't want to go in here. You're making me go in here. Um,
Right.
but as we would be doing that, it's the same thing for like here at daycare. As he's getting the exposure, as he's learning that that's a place where he can relax, like once he goes in there, pressure off, there's no corrections or anything. You just chill out, do your thing. Once he starts to understand that that's the answer that you're looking for, then he should kind of settle a little bit
Okay.
because he's going to start recognizing the pattern of I just go in the kennel. There's no pressure from like the leash or like if you guys are going to follow through with training, like there's no e-collar pressure. There's nothing like that. It's just kind of like I go in here, I chill, and then I exit when they allow me to exit. Because
Okay.
technically leaving the kennel is like a privilege to them is what the way that we want to look at it. So if they're going to be acting up doing all this stuff, like why would we take away structure? Do you know what I mean? So if
Mm-hmm.
they're listening doing their thing, then we can start to take away structure. uh,
Okay.
and then the treats can be used still to assist him getting more comfortable in the kennel, but with the way that you're doing it right now, how you said that he kind of can snatch a treat away like pretty
Yeah.
to him, it's a similar thing where when the dog's walking by, when he's getting defensive, to where he's getting the reward and he's not going in. So he's starting to learn like I can get everything that I want and I don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
um, that's something too that will probably be worked on in the training and like recommended to you just to create more.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
Um, and then for the actual e-collar correcting, going into all the training stuff now. Are you familiar with the e-collar at all or anything like that?
Yeah, we haven't used it on him, but some of my friends' dogs use it, and I think we used it on like our family dog years ago. So we're open to it. But obviously, yeah, want to learn more about it and how it
Yeah.
would work for him.
So um, with the e-collar, the reason why it works so well for us and why we use it in training is because it introduces something called physicality. And physicality is basically how dogs communicate to each other as far as if they don't want them to do something, kind of teaching another dog like
Yeah.
rules of a certain area, everything like that. So there's a lot of ways that physicality can be introduced. Um, Dogs learn it from a very young age. So I don't know if you've seen this video or it's been recommended to you to see this video or anything, but there's a really popular YouTube video where a mother cream retriever goes into a playpen with all of her puppies. All the puppies are being super energetic. They're all over her. They're not giving her space. So she goes for a correctional bite on one of them,
Yeah.
and then they all kind of settle down and they relax. So right there, they're all learning that if mom is going to tell us not to do something, she's going to follow it up with that physicality because they can't communicate with words or anything. So
Yeah.
the way that they're going to tell each other no. Same thing if Rio was going to bother another dog and this dog wanted Rio to give him their space, that dog would go in for a bite on Rio to let him know
Yeah.
back in my space. So we're essentially kind of adding that in as a way to tell them no. And the way that we do this is with the e-collar. You can also use a prong collar if you've ever seen Cesar Milan, or maybe in your puppy training you've seen like the physical touch.
Yeah. Hmm.
All of that is physicality. With the e-collar, the reason why we like it so much is because it allows us to, one, be able to add in that touch and that physicality from wherever we are. So for
Right.
example, since you're interested in recall, if we need to kind of correct Rio for not following through with the recall, or we need to kind of work on the recall with him, we now have all that distance that we can use where, if he maybe is away from you without the collar, there's no way that we're going to be able to touch him or do anything or make him follow through with the command.
Right.
So that's just like the one benefit of it. Another reason why we like the e-collar is because it is more consistent than a lot of the other ways of correcting a dog. So for example, if I did a touch correction on Rio, it may be way different than how you do it with Rio. Or same thing with the prong collar. If you need to do a leash pop, it's going to be different based on whoever's doing it. So with the e-collar, whatever level it's on, it's going to be the same for you. It's going to be the same for your parents. It's going to be the same for anybody else that is going to use the e-collar. So it can be very consistent. Are you? Have you ever been to a physical therapist office?
Yeah. A long
Uh,
time ago, but yeah.
did either have you seen it anywhere, or did they have to use the TENS unit on you?
I don't think so.
Okay, that's just where you might have seen it in like movies or a TV show or something, where they put the patches on the muscles and then they
Okay.
relation there to kind of work on
Yeah.
the knots.
Yeah, yeah,
So the e-collar is the same technology for muscle stimulation. So there's no electricity or anything like
yeah.
that.
Okay.
It's just stimulating that local muscle area. And then in the same way that a physical therapist would use it, where they're changing the levels based on what is working for the patient, we also have a lot of levels to work with to see where Rio is going to be at for addressing the behavior stuff or for addressing the obedience stuff.
Okay.
Um, and then with those levels, the e-collars that we use have 127 levels. So you may have seen either the e-collar that your family has already used or other friends' e-collars if they have a smaller range, like maybe they go from like 1 to 10 or something like that, or 1 to 30. Their 10 is the same as our 127. It's just that with the 127 levels, we can be much more specific in between the ranges. So like, let's say you use one that just goes 1 to 10. Maybe at 5, Rio is like freaking out. It's too much stimulation for him.
Yeah.
Maybe at 4, he doesn't feel it anymore. So with
Got it.
the levels, we can kind of hone in on what's going to work for him. Whereas 30 is too much, 20 is too little, but now we have like 25 and 26 and 23. So that's why we like to use the e-collars that we use, just because now we can get very, very specific and kind of get the best result because of it.
Okay.
Um, And then another thing I'll mention with the e-collar, where it's a little bit different than doing the touch correction or the prong collar, is that it's less confrontational between the owner and the dog.
Right.
So, with the prong collar, he can see you like popping it, or he sees you going in for a correction. And it's good to have that disciplinary presence, but sometimes the confrontation can be too much. So, with this, it sounds like probably a little bit silly, but if you correct Rio with something, or if you correct Rio with the e-collar, he's not looking to you as like, oh, mom just,
Yeah.
he's just thinking like it just like happened, like I just should.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so in that way, we can be kind of like a less confrontational with him, and also make things very clear to him without having to do this kind of like confrontation one-on-one thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, do you have any questions with any of that, or did all that make sense?
It totally makes sense. So I guess like my question is then, it's something you guys use both to like get him to do something like go in the kennel and also to like stop the growling and the behavior that he has towards strangers. Like
Yeah.
it does all of that.
So the way
Okay.
that I think about it is we use treats and stuff like that in order to tell the dog yes, and we're rewarding for that kind of stuff, and like that's good. But now with the e-collar, we kind of have a way of telling him no very easily. So when he's acting a certain way that we're not liking behavior-wise, like nipping at people, growling at people, we can tell him no very easily with the e-collar. And since it's in a language he understands, we're going to get results rather than somebody just saying no over and over again. There's no like consequence for him, so we're just adding
Yeah.
consequence. Same thing with going in the kennel. We're basically, yes, we're trying to tell him to go in the kennel, but him pulling back and giving all
It's
this
not
resistance,
okay. Yeah.
yeah, is what we would be saying no to, and we'd be trying to snap him.
Okay. Got
So
it.
it's adding consequence to the things that we would not like him to do as far as behavior or staying consistent with obedience.
Okay.
Does that
What
make
and it works for recall as well. Like,
Yeah, so
okay.
with whatever program you do, it will probably be more focused on behavioral stuff, but we do include, because it with our heal command and the recall command, one, the recall is just important to have for any dog owner, just because it's like the command that you would use if any emergency happens. You need
Yeah.
to go back to you. So we always include that. And then heal can also help with behavior stuff outside, just because of how strict it is. So with whatever program you do, you'll definitely at least be getting those two obedience commands that will also assist both you, because they're just good to have, and with the behavior stuff.
Great.
So the heal command that we use is super strict. We have it to where Rio should be walking with us with his right shoulder in line with your left leg the entire time, and then when you come to a stop, he should just sit down right next to you. And even if you don't have like too many issues walking him now, other than the nervousness, this
Yeah.
is giving us a way to have some structure on the walk that we can reinforce. So if we notice that, let's say we're walking and he starts to notice another dog, and he might be veering off of heel a little bit because he's like either getting nervous, so he's stepping back, or going to the side, anything like that. Now we're not necessarily correcting what's going on right there, but we're correcting because he's not in heel anymore. So now he's out of position, so we correct until he gets back in position. And ideally, he's so focused on following you and making sure that he's good, like
Yeah.
the positioning with you, that he may not have time to worry about this extra stuff on the side. So that's one way that the heal command would help with that.
Okay.
We, we would still address like the extra nervousness and him making this decision to growl or like show teeth and all that stuff. But this is another way that can kind of help reinforce everything while working on the behavior stuff.
Okay.
Um, and then as far as correcting like the nervousness, one way that will kind of be gone over with you in the program is we would be trying to, for example, specifically in a walking scenario, we would be trying to snap Rio out of that mindset of
Yeah.
building all this like defensiveness. So that's something that we would be looking to correct with the e-collar. And as you do the program, we'll find situations to show you how to correct, what progress with the correction is looking like, um, why you're correcting for certain things, and everything like that. But the broad kind of statement of it would just be that anytime he's starting to get that nervousness built up, you see him like focusing in on a dog, you see him maybe starting to growl, then we would want to correct with the e-collar to keep him from getting to that level to where he does this like snapping or like
Okay.
nipped at your uncle. Like we'd want to start adding some preventative like corrections before that to let him know that as he's escalating, we don't want him to get to that upper level where he's like exhibiting all these different behaviors that we don't want. Just
Yeah.
so that he can start to learn that I don't have to be nervous all the time. I don't have to take it upon myself to bite this person or growl at this person. Um, we would want to keep him at a more relaxed level. And then over
Okay.
he should learn that I don't have to go to that level, that we're okay with him just being at like the
Okay.
2 or 3 with the nervousness and everything. Any questions with that so far?
Yeah. I think that that also makes sense. I guess it's just like thinking if he, I don't know how, dogs think, but if he's like, I'm protecting, my owner or whatever, and then we're like hurting him, like, I guess that like confuses me just a little bit. Like, it makes sense to me, like, why you shouldn't, why you correct them, like, totally. But I just wonder if that, like, then will make him just like, I don't know, more scared of stuff, but
Yeah,
I don't
so
know.
through the program, there's like gonna be nuances to your situation
Okay.
that you guys can, it will be worked on more specifically. But the breakdown of it would just be like yes, it is nice to have that your dog have the mindset of like to protect you, but right now he's kind of taking it
It's
upon
like too far.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's taking it upon himself to go after anybody that's going to be coming in that he's
Yeah. Hmm.
and that's something that we want to manage just because down the line, it could be like, for example, your uncle, like you're not worried about him, but Rio went in for a bite on that. So we need to make sure
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah.
control of him in these situations, because if we leave it up to him to decide who is okay and who is not okay, then we're going to run into these scenarios where he's snapping at people that you are fine with, and then the mindset of him kind of being protective is now just turning into I'm going to just bite anybody I don't know.
No, yeah. We don't want that. Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So like I understand the like you not wanting to, I guess, confuse him because you like that he has like a protective mindset of you. But it's just something that can cause more trouble down the line if it's not cleaned up right now.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great.
Does that
Um, yeah. No, that's good. That's good. And then I would guess like, when we start the program, it'll make more sense, but just around like kids, it's not going to be here in our house. Like, I just, if he's not doing it at K9, like, do we just kind of find like people on the street that scare him? Like, I don't know. It's just,
um, what we would probably recommend to you, since it is more behavior stuff, especially more like in-home stuff where you're going to have to know how to handle the situation,
okay.
to know how to handle Rio, we probably wouldn't have you do like a board and train or a daycare and train, just
Okay.
because when Rio comes here, like I said earlier, we don't see any of that. So if we
Yeah.
don't see
Right.
it, we can't really work on it.
Right. Okay.
So for him and this defensiveness, I think you would have to do like in person, uh,
Okay.
and I would recommend you can have your sessions in home to work on the defensiveness. So
Okay.
um, whether it's with Enrique or Jesse, um, they can go to your house and you guys can work on the defensiveness like that. And that's how we would probably work on that. Just because
Okay.
we want to do it in the environment where he's actually going to exhibit these behaviors. And we also would want you to be the one kind of doing everything with the training, because we would just verbally instruct you. Just because you're going to have to do that, when you have people coming over, or you're going to have to work on that when you guys are out walking him or when you're in the home. So it's much more beneficial on both you and any other family members or anything on your end to do it in person where you're kind of in charge of the training there.
Okay. Do we also come to you guys for some sessions? Like, would it be a mix?
Yeah. So, for example, if like when you guys are going to work on heal, like the kind of the obedience stuff, that would be at, weather permitting, it would be at the Oz Park or like Palmer Square Park here. And then
Okay.
you have your session outside like that. Or, if it's raining or something, or if you guys do sessions when it starts to get like colder, then we could have it here in the facility. So either of those would work. It's just for the behavior stuff. If we're not seeing it, at the park, or if we're not seeing it on a walk, then it would probably be recommended to make a few of the sessions in home, so that way we
Okay.
address it better in the environment.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we could do some like in persons, at the facility or outside, maybe get some tips, try, using the e-collar at home. And
Yeah.
then if we feel like we need more, like have one of you guys come out
Yeah.
to,
So
okay.
for this stuff that Rio needs to work on, I would say that you would probably want to have those follow-up sessions to work on the defensiveness in the home, like as like a part of the program. Like I wouldn't.
Okay. Okay.
So you can have this mixture where like you start off maybe doing heal and recall at the park, and then your next few sessions would be in home, just because that's how you're going to get the most benefit from it.
Most out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, any questions with that specifically?
Yeah. I mean, when can we like get started and
Yep.
Yeah, costs and all that fun stuff.
So for the program, I would probably, like I said, I would recommend in person. I
Okay.
um I think it would be fine to do it with Enrique. So I'll
Okay.
probably have you try and schedule with him for the in person. So like the scheduling would depend on his schedule as far as what other lessons he has for these upcoming weeks and everything like that. Since the in person is a reoccurring set schedule, so like let's say on Mondays you're free from like 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Then it would be every Monday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay.
for however long the program you choose would go. I would recommend at least the 6 week program in person,
Okay. Hmm.
just so that you have 2 sessions for heal, 1 session for recall, because that's going to be like your basics for those 2 commands. And then you have your other 3 sessions to focus in on the behavior stuff. And that's going to give you the best balance as far as obedience and behavior.
Okay.
And you can do more than that if you want to push it a little bit farther, if you feel like he needs like extra work on it. But I would say 6 week would be like your minimum to go for.
Okay.
Um, and then as far as the e-collar, I would probably have him be on the either 2300 or the 1900S Black Edition. You don't have to remember that right now.
Okay.
All this will be in the email that you get after the consultation as well. And then for the pricing and everything, I don't know it off the top of my head, but everything is on the website, and
Okay.
I'll have them send pricing breakdowns and payment stuff in the email as well.
Okay.
All that will be included with the recommended program and how that can break down and everything. And then they should also again be able to let you know how soon you're able to actually start.
Okay. Cool.
Thing. Let me think if there's anything else. Did you have any other questions or anything like that?
Um, do we get the e-collar like online or with you
Oh,
guys?
so you can either purchase it on your own through Amazon or the Dog Show website,
Okay.
or since we are a Dog Show retailer, it'll be the same price if you purchase it through us, and then we would just bring it to your first lesson.
Okay.
So if that's easier for you, then we can just have it set up here for him, and then just bring it to whenever you guys are going to get started.
Yeah, we might do that, but I'll talk to my fiance about it.
Okay. And then I think that's about it. Was there anything else that you feel like you wanted to go over with Rio, or anything that you felt was unaddressed maybe, or any other questions?
No, I don't think so. I feel like we covered all the stuff that we want to work on and like our goals for him. I guess like just in case we can't get a session for a few weeks, is there anything that you'd recommend just like doing to kind of keep the behavior, um,
Um,
you know,
I would say just like, did you guys go over any of like correcting with his puppy training and all that?
he kind of with like the
Yeah,
two finger and yeah.
I would try, and if you notice him exhibiting certain behaviors, you can use either, do you know what a bonker is?
I think so, but can you remind me? It's like it
Yeah.
makes a noise or something.
Well, you can. What we use here is just like a rolled up like bath towel, and
Okay.
you can just like bonk him on the head with it. So it's a way
Okay.
for you
Okay.
to do touch correction, but since it's so soft, you don't have to worry about like hurting him or anything like that.
Yeah.
More just adding that presence of like, hey, like I don't want you to do this, and then you're having that kind of disciplinary stance towards him, and we can I could see if we could in the email include some videos of how to use the bonker and everything like that, because that's a way for you to start adding in more physicality while,
Physicality.
yeah,
Yeah.
while also it being a little bit easier than doing the touch correction.
Okay.
Um, and I would start introducing that if you're going to be telling him no for certain things. Now, it may be difficult just because how he's been reinforced with certain things, and he may be a little bit stubborn with stuff. So it's not going to necessarily fix everything, but if you're looking for an easier way to correct him until you guys can get started with the training, I would suggest using a bonker. Um,
Okay.
yeah, or doing the touch correction. And then if you're able to work on the kennel stuff, if you're able to start kind of trying to get him in the kennel and all that, that's another thing to work on. Oh, and then since he did do a little bit of a nip at a person,
Yeah.
I would recommend starting to muzzle condition him, just so that way when you do the training, we can see kind of what he's going to do without any risk of him nipping anybody or anything like that. So I would start muzzle conditioning him right away, and then we can also send you videos on that, so that way you can see how it's done and everything. But the faster that you get him comfortable with the muzzle, the easier the training is going to be, because we're going to be able to see what he's actually going to do without having any risk or anything like that. Because if he goes for a nip on somebody when he's at the door or when we're starting to do the training, it's going to be a lot harder to make progress rather than if he has a muzzle, he can't really bite anybody.
Yeah.
It's a lot
Okay.
to address things. Um,
Okay.
so I would recommend doing that as well, just for safety when the training starts.
Okay. So we have like the easy walk, which kind of goes over, but I know he could still bite. Like, would that be something we could use?
I would recommend using, I'll put this in the email
Okay.
too, but the muzzles that we like to use are Baskerville muzzles.
Okay. So we
And
need like a new muzzle.
they're like extended wear muzzles, so they're very comfortable for the dog. And then they're like a very light, like rubber material.
Okay.
Um, I would use one of those. We just find that they usually fit the best and work the best. And then you can get that on Amazon, and all of that, all the sizing charts and everything should be there. So
Okay. Great.
that'll be easy to kind of figure out. And then I'll be sure to include again all this in the email, just in case you forget anything or anything.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
But start that as soon as you can, because sometimes it can take dogs a little while to adjust with having the muzzle on. So once you get the email and you kind of see how to do it, I would go ahead and order one right away and start working on that.
Okay, cool.
And I think that's it, unless you had any other questions.
No, I don't think so. Not right now, at least.
Okay. Yeah, then like I said, I'll include all this here so that way it's all written out for you in the email, and then Enrique's assistant should be able to help you get the scheduling figured out and everything like that.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Great.
So,
Thank you very much. It was
no
nice
problem.
talking to you and meeting you.
Nice talking to you as well. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye.